Today I'd like to continue our journey in the Gospel of Matthew in chapter 12. We've been talking about Jesus and the Sabbath, and Jesus curing on the Sabbath. Jesus seems to get into trouble with some of those who are kind of particular about Sabbath observance, and they're sort of scrupulous about it. And Jesus is doing some healing, and the Pharisees in particular don't seem to be too happy with Jesus for doing this, and Jesus is trying to defend it. So in verse 8 of chapter 12, Jesus makes a rather amazing assertion that you can certainly argue with, and I'm sure the Pharisees will, and some of the scribes and the religious authorities, because they're sort of wondering about this Jesus fellow at this point. So Jesus says, "For the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath." So Jesus uses this title from the book of Daniel, this messianic title that we've encountered before in our excursion through Matthew, the Son of Man. This refers to a person who's going to come and who's going to share this wonderful kingdom, this kingdom of God with the people, the Son of Man. And so Jesus is saying, really, I am the Son of Man. So he's affirming who he is. And he's saying that he is Lord of the Sabbath. Now, put yourself in the position of the Pharisees and religious authorities of the day. Jesus is saying, I am the Lord of the Sabbath. Of course, your reaction is going to be, Jesus, who do you think you are? Lord of the Sabbath, come on, give us a break here. How can you say this? You are the son of a carpenter. You come from the boondocks of Galilee, not even Judea, not even the area around Jerusalem. You're in the north, in Galilee, in the hill country. Nothing really comes out of Galilee much to begin with. Plus, you're in this little hick town of Nazareth, a small little town. It's where you were born. You have no pedigree in terms of your background, no pedigree in terms of your learning. You didn't study with any of the great rabbis. Who do you think that you are? Would be the normal reaction. So Jesus is saying that I have supreme authority over the law. Now, notice, and this is a very important point, Jesus is not dismissing the law. Jesus is not belittling the law. Jesus is not putting down the law in any way, shape, or form. Some people approach Jesus and say, well, he's just a lawbreaker. He just wants to destroy the law. He wants to establish a whole new way of doing things. He doesn't care about Moses and the law that God gave to Moses. He doesn't care about the prophets. He doesn't care about the tradition. He doesn't care about the wisdom literature. He's just off on his own. He's a crazy man, right? No, no, no. Jesus is not saying that at all. As a matter of fact, any clear reading of the teaching of Jesus would say that Jesus knows the law very well. We've just seen this in his refutation of the Pharisees with regard to this healing on the Sabbath, and the apostles plucking the grain on the Sabbath. Jesus has clearly pointed out, well, David did this before, the priests do this before. Jesus is knowledgeable about the intricacies of the law and is presenting them clearly, saying that I believe in the law. The law is important, it's significant. Jesus was a good Jew in every respect. He reverenced the law, he reverenced the tradition, he knew the law. Jesus is not dismissing the law in any way, shape, or form. And any reading that says that Jesus doesn't have any respect for the law is really out of whack. But he is saying something that is really amazing and is shocking. And we should be shocked. when we hear it. Sometimes we get so used to Jesus is saying, well, the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. Oh, that's nice that Jesus is saying this, and you move on to the next sentence, next verse. Oh, no, no, no. You stop here at verse 8. You take a pause and you say, ooh, Jesus is making an amazing, amazing assertion. There are many differing interpretations of the law. Talk to any rabbi even today. He will tell you, Rabbi so-and-so says this, Rabbi so-and-so says this rabbi, back and forth about. And of course, this disputation about the law goes on within the Jewish community. Of course, we have the three major branches, the conservative, the Reform, the Orthodox, and there are sub-branches, of course, within those branches. So there are many different aspects to Judaism. We might even say there are Judaisms. There's not one solid school. And even, of course, within Israel today, in terms of the politics of Israel, that's part of the situation, is the diversity of parties and schools of thought with regard to how can we establish peace and the back and forth that goes on. So Jesus is certainly aware of that. He was aware of it in his day. It certainly is nothing new. It existed for many years. We see it, going back to the time of Moses and the original giving of the law. We see the back and forth that took place in the community between Moses and the other followers of the Torah. So when Jesus is saying this, he is making an amazing, amazing statement. He is saying, literally, when there are these different interpretations of the law, it is Jesus who is the authoritative interpreter of the law. This is an amazing statement. And again, we go back and say, well, who are you, Jesus, to say this? What is your background? Well, Jesus has demonstrated that background consistently since the beginning of his call to the kingdom of God. He's demonstrated by his teaching and, more importantly, by his actions of healing. Jesus has the credentials, certainly. We've heard the people echo this refrain, when Jesus speaks about the law, he speaks with authority. And so the question here is one of authority. Who has the authority? And that certainly is a very significant religious question. Who is the authority? There are different interpretations. And to bring clarity, you need an authority. You need a person or persons who will speak with clarity so that the people know what the teaching is. And so this dispute about the Sabbath, this dispute about the plucking of the grain, brings out all of these questions. What are you doing? How are you doing it? Are you violating the Sabbath? This back and forth that takes place here in chapter 12. And it's very significant because it's revealing really who Jesus is. So Matthew is turning this dispute about the plucking of the grain into really a messianic affirmation. And of course, we're going to see in Matthew that Peter makes a messianic affirmation about Jesus a little bit later on. But we sometimes miss the fact that Jesus himself has just made a highly significant messianic affirmation. We can just see this as, this is just a simple tack on to the story of the plucking of the grain on the Sabbath. Oh, no. We miss the whole point. What is Jesus saying? Jesus says quite clearly, for the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. That is an amazing assertion, an amazing claim. And of course, you get down to the classic question about Jesus that we come back to time and time again. Jesus is either a colossal liar, a speaker of terrible fables and mistruths, the ultimate Santa Claus, if you will, or Jesus is who he says he is. He is making this claim because this is literally and truthfully who he is. He is the Lord of the Sabbath. He is the Son of Man. He is, in our Catholic theology, certainly, the Son of God, the second person of the Trinity, fully divine and fully human, this mystery that we call the Incarnation, God dwelling with us. And so we make this assertion that he is truly the Lord of the Sabbath. And the law is extremely important, but also equally important is an authoritative interpretation of the law. And this is the claim that Jesus has made.